James Woods, who is very anti-ceasefire and has said some very disgusting things about Palestinians. He did tweet out, "No ceasefire, no compromise, no forgiveness, hashtag kill them all." Yeah. And he does not believe in climate change. Now he's like crying on TV about his house, and they just like built a pool there or something. I don't know. Some major developments have been lost now. So let's take a look at what James Woods had to say. "The fire is not from climate change, you ignorant a-hole. It's because liberal idiots like you elect liberal idiots like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. One doesn't understand the first thing about fire management, and the other can't fill the water reservoirs." And then you pointed out the real cause of this, though, Yasha, and you said, "No, James, it is because they let gays fight fires. Classic Hollywood lib take from you." So what is your response besides that to, just elaborate on that.
I mean, it's just a joke. Yeah, I know that, I know that everything gets sucked into a stupid culture war in America, right? Yeah. So the culture war is that everything is because you have these, minorities and, the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs or something that's ruining America. And it's just a joke because one of the main reasons of these fires in Los Angeles, and someone, a historian like Mike Davis has written quite a lot about this, is that Southern California, in these canyons and hills, naturally there are fires that are supposed to happen there just without any human intervention. These places will burn. They'll accumulate kind of dry bush. And if there's a spark from lightning or something and the wind conditions are just right, they'll burn. And these things will, and if the Santa Ana winds are blowing, which are these dry winds from the south that happen in the winter, it'll just like light these places on fire. And so the main problem, is that to build in these areas, you shouldn't be building. It's like building at the bottom of a riverbed, that's like that has seasonal flooding, right? It's like kind of like the Nile or something, like floods happen. And if you build in a flood zone, you're going to get flooded, and you can try to like mitigate it in various ways, which in Southern California, they have been doing that. They've essentially suppress fires all the time. And if anything starts, they put it out immediately. You have these firefighters. But if you build in these areas where fires naturally rip through the canyons, rip through the hills, right? You're not always going to be able to put out the fire in time, right? And so there are, ways to manage it. They started doing like controlled burns, burning in a controlled manner certain chunks of these hills so that to prevent huge, infernos from erupting. But that's still managing it, right? The fact is that you should not build in certain areas. And these hills, they're beautiful. They're ocean views. They're up, this is some of the best, most expensive real estate in Los Angeles. And people shouldn't build there, right? Mm-hmm. So you're kind of going against nature, and you're trying to manage nature, and you can only manage it so long until it kind of gets out of control. And this happens all the time in Los Angeles. Malibu burns every now and again because of in Malibu in particular, the structure of the canyons and the hills there is such that it creates almost these furnaces, like currents are concentrated and sped up, right? And so these fires will just like rip. I mean, they'll move faster than a car can. A car can't even outrun them because that's how fast they move. And so it's like it's a known issue in Los Angeles and in the area that this happens. And so to blame it on, Gavin Newsom, and essentially what this is actually completely has nothing to do with, I know they're trying to blame it on the left and they conflate liberals and, right, left wingers, but it's a completely free market capitalist way of approaching development, right? You essentially allow real estate developers to do whatever they want to make money. And Los Angeles is run, not unlike New York, by real estate interests, right? They control, they're in total control there. And California in general is controlled by real estate interests, like actually most of America. It's a very powerful lobby. But LA in particular, because there's so much land surrounding Los Angeles, there's so much wealth to be made if you allow unchecked development and unchecked real estate speculation. That's always been the economic engine of Los Angeles, real estate speculation. Ever since the railroads first connected to Los Angeles and connected them to, the continental America, like real estate speculation, scams is the business in that city. And so they have a historic tied to the city government. And so it's the opposite of what James Wood is talking about.
Right.
I mean, it's the problem is unchecked capitalism, and unchecked greed and unchecked development and unchecked expansion, right?
It's pretty bipartisan, right? This issue.
Yeah, it's a bipartisan thing that everyone supports. It doesn't matter if you're Gavin Newsom or if you're Donald Trump, essentially, because Gavin Newsom he represents the landed interests of California. That's who essentially bankrolled his career. And that's why, I don't know, that's why all these people can get along, they're in the same club essentially. So I think it's trying to make it look like, oh yeah, this black, mayor of Los Angeles, that's the problem because she's too stupid to refill the reservoirs. It's like, well, no, I think once a fire like that breaks out, I don't think there's anything you can do, just because if people have seen the videos from, the Palisades fire, the winds were insane. I mean, they were toppling palm trees, these palm trees that they have. They were like bending in half almost. So the winds were hurricane level almost. And so the way that fire can spread, I mean, it just gets spread around a huge wide area, and there's nothing you can do at that point. And so it is really about political decisions that have been made, for us, for the people who live there. That's not part of the conversation at all, because I don't think, the Democrats who are in power in LA, and they are incompetent. I'm not going to, root for them. I'm not going to say they're great, because I do think that the Democrats generally Democrats in California are some of the worst Democrats possible, as we've seen with Kamala Harris. Like the deep neoliberalism that they exist in, and the deep, almost provincial incompetence, because California still is a kind of a provincial state, because I don't know, there's just not a lot of attention that people are really unplugged from the political process in a lot of these towns, and including Los Angeles. So there's not a lot of focus on these elected officials to really, be competent even in the way that they communicate with the public is incompetent. So I'm not saying that they're great or they've done a great job, but it's just, the problem is unchecked capitalism. I mean, I don't know, it's crude, but that's what it is.
But the good news is, while these fires are raging, we do have some good news, which is that our government is prioritizing the right thing. Yesterday, the House voted 243 to 140 to sanction anyone associated with the International Criminal Court's efforts to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person of the U.S. and its allies, namely Israel.
That's interesting. Does that mean, let's say if you interview someone, let's say an attorney for one of the sides, let's say for South Africa, would that be considered to be aiding and abetting?
Yeah, I wonder if
be sanctioned.
Yeah, I'm like Theodore Meron, who was one of the experts that the ICC turned to when determining deciding to release the arrest warrants. He is a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah. Well, would they be sanctioned, or could they be sanctioned? I mean, is that the letter? I don't know if you know.
No, I don't.
It's a joke. The whole thing is. I know, it's like, look, it's
they can sanction them. Yeah,
I think I'll tell you this. I do think that there is, because I've been talking, to people in LA, and I do think that it might take some time to sink in. What the scale of the destruction. The people who are affected right now are really some of the wealthiest people in America, you could say, right? Yeah, and so you could see how the system really, you can't even. There isn't even a class element to the system. It really shows that how the system was designed from the beginning impacts everyone. Essentially, everyone is tied into it, and everyone will suffer. Obviously, people with wealth can restart their lives anew easier. It's easier for them to do so. But still, in
some ways, it's a great equalizer. In some ways, it's not. But there are certain things that can't be escaped, even by the wealthy.
And even on some level, because, Palisades is an extremely wealthy enclave in Los Angeles, because the hills are where, wealthier people live, these fires do affect the wealthy more than the poor, because the poor will be living in the flats of LA. A fire could rip through these areas, but they're in an almost fully urban environment. Whereas, so obviously it's complicated, because there's some hill communities that have, I don't know, it's not just wealthy people, it's, middle class type people and all this stuff. But for me, what's interesting is that's why I kind of made a focus on looking at this terraforming system that exists all across California, is that everybody kind of is tied into it. And because that the system allows Los Angeles to exist, it doesn't really matter who you are in Los Angeles. If you're a celebrity, or if you're like, James Woods, or if you're someone who mows his lawn, you are kind of connected to it, and you're there because of that system. And the failures of that system and the kind of the dangers of that system will spread, to everyone who lives there. And so, and it is an artificial city, much more so than other cities across America, because it really does depend on just this water, on these very, very precarious, very fragile systems to bring in water. And without water, I mean, it'd be a humanitarian catastrophe in California, right? And so I get why the Republicans and kind of the right wants to make it into this stupid culture war issue, because it's something that is, I think they, like the Democrats, are kind of incapable of dealing with, and I think even the Democrats are probably unwilling, and I think just incapable, because it would completely go against everything that they stand for.
Right.
And the Democrats, I think, are very happy that the right is making it about a culture war issue, because then the Democrats can just, it's like they feed off each other, right? Because they can then hit back with the same culture war bullshit, right?
Exactly.
And so it's like, and everyone can avoid talking about the central issue, which is climate change, right? And the fact that the Democrats aren't doing a damn thing about it, and the way that society is organized in a way that exacerbates natural disasters rather than minimizing them.